Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you for having
socks.
me. Thank you.
Good socks.
It's Christmas.
Exactly. We'll talk about that in a minute. Do you ever get the chance, or do you ever like being encouraged to look back and think about what you've created up until this point?
Yeah, but then I get scared, and that's why I've been having like a nervous breakdown for a year. Because when I start thinking about what I've done, it gets a bit scary. So I love everything that I've done, and it's very important to me. So everything is a part of what is part of what you do, and but when I look back, it's very strange. I saw footage of me at Disney in like 1980, and that really scared me because I thought, I was just as weird back then as you know what I mean. I was just somebody that didn't speak. I sat there and sort of drew kind of and hid under my desk at Disney and played volleyball for 4 hours during the day. And I realized that, the world and all that was this very strange place and to work and create in.
Yeah. It's for me, it's been an amazing opportunity to remind myself of so many of your films, because so many of them for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience were just really important parts of our life, and your films kind of gave us a voice in a lot of ways, I think, as well, for me personally anyway. And we're going to show some clips of some of those films as well, but this is a music podcast, and I wanted to talk to you before we start looking at clips about music in your films. And you go back to, I watched Vincent again today, and this little brilliant 6-minute film, and music is such a big part of even that. So when you started making films, music was obviously part of your dialogue with creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a musician and I don't play anything, but since I wasn't really a good communicator, I always felt music was a great way, if I was a musician or even not being one, it's a beautiful way to communicate with people. So music and film, I grew up on films like monster movies and things that felt more like silent films, and so the look and the music and the mood of it was all part of what it was. So like I said, for me, music has always been like with Danny Elfman, and when he's done things, it's like treat him like another character. He's a main character in the film, and so that's why it's equally, if not sometimes more important than dialogue for me.
Danny Elfman is someone that you've worked with for most of your films. Well, how did you guys meet? How did that relationship start?
Well, when I was still a student, I used to go see his band Oingo Boingo in nightclubs, like the Hong Kong Cafe or Madame Wong's in Los Angeles. And I just was impressed by the theatrical nature of, it was back in sort of new wave punk era kind of thing. They were just doing things that seemed very filmic and very kind of nightmare, just kind of like movies that I liked.
Yeah.
And so then I got to make Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and then I hadn't done a movie, and he hadn't really done a movie, so we felt very much in sync, kind of like two people that don't know what they're doing something. So it's great.
Kindred spirits. What were the conversations though that you had then in terms of going, well, you were saying you don't know what you're doing. You obviously did know what you were doing, but in terms of coming together to work together on that.
Well, I think we grabbed because I could see him going through the same stuff I did. He'd be there, when you're recording music. For me is great because the pressure's off of you a little bit, and you're just sitting watching an orchestra play to a movie, and it's such a beautiful. And at the beginning, that was a beautiful thing because they would project the film and have the orchestra play. Now you have little monitors, but it was such a beautiful first experience as you see a full orchestra, playing to your movie, and that was just beautiful. But he struggled like I did, People thought, well, who's this guy, one of the music guys used to call Danny, yeah, Beethoven, whatever you want, It's like they didn't like the fact that he really didn't know. But for me, he was a very kindred spirit.
Well, it's that kind of thing of there's nothing wrong with the experience being the thing that you learn from.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. That's what we were all doing, and movies are that way anyway. It's such a collective kind of thing where you have so many people working with you that it's that's part of the joy and part of the frustration of it, but that's part of what's beautiful about it.
With your films, one of the things that you haven't done like loads and loads of is using existing music. You do it occasionally, you do it now and then, but it's not something that you rely on or do. Is that a conscious choice, and why is that?
No, not really. I think for me, there's certain types of things, and I think it changes from thing to thing. But like I said, the kind of films where they're more like fable or fairy tale or horror monster movies, things. That part of the music is so, like I said, it's part of the fabric of what you're making.
Yeah. How do you feel when you we're about to start watching clips? So I just want to check how you feel about watching stuff.
Well, I'm facing this way, so I'm fine.
So the first clip we're going to watch is a bit of existing music, and the only example of that in what we're about to see. And we'll watch it first and then we'll talk about it. But to be honest, I could have picked so many pieces of music from Beetlejuice, but when I watched this, I just kept laughing, and it just reminded me so much of how I felt when I first watched this film. So we're going to watch the first clip with the Dale Banana Boat song right now. Good reaction. So good. I love when you see
meticulously planned, great choreography, isn't it? Beautiful.
Yeah, I love when you see Winona in the corner and she's just absolutely wetting herself laughing at that. I don't know if that was scripted or not as well, but
I mean, it's a funny movie because actually the whole movie was pretty not scripted. It was kind of a funny movie because like the second movie I did, and when they offered it to me, I go like, I only did one studio movie. I go like, really? The studio wants to make this? And it's like, because there was no, that's why I liked it. It didn't seem like different from everything else. And so the script was very basic, and then I was just lucky to work with so many interesting, so a lot of this stuff was kind of improv, a lot of it.
Wow. But the song kind of has different lives throughout the film because it kind of starts with an element of that melody and song, and then it reappears a few times.
Yeah, it's not like I love that song. It's not really. I have it. I play in the car on the way here and back. That's the thing about it. Like, I'm not a great picker of music or anything. It just had to do with the spirit and the feeling of it. And I think that it's just had a kind of a haunted kind of a quality to it, and had kind of a sunny disposition. So it just seemed to fit what we were going for there.
Was it an easy choice, though, in terms of, did you have a collection of songs that you were trying for that particular?
Yeah, I think we tried a few different things, but for some reason that one just very simply stuck. And I think it stuck because it sort of surprised all of us, like, well, why did we pick that one? But it just, for a very strange kind of like a chemistry kind of thing, just worked out that way.
I'm sure there's other people in the audience like me who have reenacted that with their family at various gatherings and stuff.
Especially the shrimp part.
Absolutely, yeah. Just chucking them across the room as well.
Yeah.
But in particular, kind of Catherine in that as well. I could just watch.
Yeah, that's the first time I really worked with people that were really, brilliant at improvising and things. And again, for somebody who didn't communicate very well, it was really a great experience for me to be with those people.
Do you like that? Is that something you encourage them with your cast? Is to
in
find
that particular
things?
case, it was because they were all very good at Michael Keaton. They were all good at it that way. So, and it sort of needed that, and it just needed that kind of surprise elements and just kind of riffing on things. And so, it was really great for me that way in working with.
Yeah. And then when Danny's then coming in to, kind of complement the rest of the film and score the rest of the film, what did you ask of him? Because it was, I could have picked so many pieces of music from this film.
Yeah, well, it's such an odd score, it's hard to categorize. And I think that's what he did very well with my films, is that he would do scores that would fit, but would sort of defy a little bit of category in that way, and try to find the right tone. And I mean, they had trouble playing it sometimes because the movie was very active. So,
shooting an arrow.
Shooting off into the side kind of thing. But but he did, so he used a mixture of kind of gypsy and kind of weird different kind of ethnic things, and just kind of into a mixture of what it is.
Yeah. It was such a treat to watch Beetlejuice again. I hadn't watched it in a long time. It was so brilliant, as was Edward Scissorhands.
Well, but I've been lucky to have the things that nobody ever thought would, like I said, I kept asking the studio, who you really want to make this movie? Because it's like they didn't really even know
what it was. Yeah. But that's great, because I think that's what you did from the start, was that you were making things that no one else was making, and you kind of almost defined your own genre, really, in terms of it was a voice that wasn't really being heard, I think, at the time.
Well, I mean, I never thought about. I was never went to film school per se, animation school and things, and I just felt like in some weird way I lucked into it. I mean, I had passion for doing things and wanting to do things, but I felt always very lucky to have, taken the weird journey I had, because getting my first movie, it was probably easier than getting the restaurant job I had gotten the year before, in terms of actually getting the job, so I feel very blessed that way.
Do you, with your kind of artistic background in drawing, do you storyboard everything?
I did when I started. Then when I started working with these kind of people, that actually turned me off of doing storyboard everything, because I found in certain cases, so I do board things, we do board things, but I try to keep open because sometimes there are things that happen that, you don't want to be locked in too much necessarily to a storyboard.
Can we talk Edward Scissorhands? What do you think of when you think of that film?
I think of, that's probably one of the more personal things, where that was me as a teenager and a child. I mean, that's what, for me, it was a very important thing. It was the first time I got to do something where I felt, I got to explore in a sort of fable form. That's because I was interested in those kind of movies, like, monster movies that tell you things about you in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's what that attempt for me was to sort of describe those kind of feelings that you have as a teenager or young adult or any time, and do it in a kind of a fable form. So for me, that was a very special film.
And in terms of that start of that relationship with Johnny as well, and casting him as Edward Scissorhands, what did you see in him in getting that part and giving him that part?
That's what he. Oh,
sorry. Get you a stand so you don't have to hold it.
Yeah. Well, it was all just instinct. I wasn't an avid fan of 21 Jump Street. I wasn't sitting at home watching that every night.
Really?
I did have his poster on my wall as a teenager, but no. But I felt when I met him that he was that character, because at the time he was a guy that everybody thought of him as something because he looked a certain way, but inside he's completely fucked up. I mean, he's completely different. But my point being, what I'm saying? It's
totally.
It's like perception. It's like Frankenstein. You looked at one way, but you're really something else. And so, just with his eyes and his soul and his emotion, that it just needs something that just could convey that simply.
Yeah, we're going to watch a clip from it right now. This is Edward Scissorhands. Oh. Such a brilliant piece of score over that whole.
I know, it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
I almost had a heart attack during that one violin solo.
Because the music's doing well, you tell me, is the music doing a specific job in that scene and in this film?
Yeah, again, Danny brilliantly uses different kinds of forms of things altogether, and he does it in a way like I wasn't listening, I wasn't watching, listening to the music. It's quite strong, and it's quite intricate and quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And so that's my great thing with him, is that he just uses all sorts of things to create its own unique kind of thing.
Because it feels almost like at times it's Edward's voice.
Yeah.
In a way, it's that kind of the joy that he's getting from what he's doing.
Absolutely. It's like I always say with Danny, it's like treat it like it's a silent movie, in a way. It's like, let that be the thing to give you the emotion.
Yeah.
And if it's right.
I heard you say that this was one of the hardest films to get made. Is that right?
Yeah, because after I'd done a couple movies that were successful, so then everybody thinks you're doing like Batman. Right, so you do Batman, and then you go. They go, oh, this is a low budget movie, because you're making. So I had to tell producers, just don't tell them it's me, because then if they didn't, we'd get a normal, fee for something. So it got sort of penalized for doing successful movies, even though this one wasn't a big Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite difficult, and I think I had to even because I think I had a deal at Warner Brothers, and I think I knew they didn't want to do it, so I tried to maneuver it out of there because I wanted to make it. And so I said, well, I got a movie about a guy with Scissorhands, or I got a big Hollywood musical. And they go, oh, we'll do the Hollywood musical, even though I didn't really have a Hollywood musical. But so then I got to go do Scissorhands sort of away from that.
I mean, his performance in that is just, it's absolutely extraordinary. But when you're writing and directing a film, is it a different experience for you?
Well, I didn't. Caroline Thompson wrote, but it was my thing. Mm-hmm. So, but I was lucky. I worked with people like her. She did a great job, sort of doing it.
Yeah.
And actually, that's why we connected too. She's like Danny that way, somebody that understood that world. So between like her and Danny, you try to work with collaborators that understand what it is, obviously. And in those particular cases, it was crucial that they, she felt all those things, he felt all those things, I feel those things. So
yeah. You mentioned Batman. We're going to do Batman Returns, if that's okay. Care?
I don't care. Just not Batman Forever. I didn't do that one. Okay.
It's Catwoman.
You get blamed for a lot of things, but don't.
Yeah, we're not going there. Catwoman was just. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer. Holy shit!
I'm so impressed by her. I know she's probably impressed me more than anybody because she let a live bird fly out of her mouth. I mean, you can't. No, it was so safe.
Yeah.
But she did things that nobody. It was like. It's like Jackass or something. It's like, here, put a bird in your mouth and let it. And then she had cats attacking her, and she did the thing where it's like, I love people who do special effects without, having to do special effects, like a live bird flying out of your mouth, or attacked by cats, and then have your eyes jolt open from white to regular. That's good.
Yeah.
She should win an Academy Award for this shit.
It was really difficult to pick a piece of music from this as well because there's all the Gotham stuff, there's all the kind of Batman stuff. There's so much going on there.
I don't know. I can't.
How do you feel about sequels as well?
Back in those days, the dark ages of film, right? There was you never heard franchise or you never heard anything. So we did Batman. It was just kind of like, okay, there's nobody in England, and we had Pinewood to ourselves, and wow, this is kind of cool, great. But luckily, you never heard that. On the second time, then you start hearing, franchise. You start hearing the terms that start to poison the environment, and so at that time it was lucky.
Yeah.
And then when I did the second one, I realized I wasn't really cut out, to make a movie and please McDonald's and Happy Meals and all that shit.
What you do, however, is these performances, like with the first film with Jack, with this one with Michelle, with Danny, and oh my God,
I've been so lucky, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I've been really, yeah.
Shall we watch a bit of Michelle? Because this is, and the way that
she did all that whipping stuff, and she was on high. I mean, see, nobody really before again special effects. High heels in that suit, whipping and doing all that stuff for real. That's, to me, that's impressive.
It's the skipping bit that I love as well. Watch this bit, yeah, okay. Batman Returns. So good. You created the most amazing environment and playground for these actors to turn that round, to do their best.
Well, I mean, Michelle, like I said, she really impressed because, like I said, there's that, and then there's all the stuff that make it look effortless. But on those heels and on those roofs and all that shit, she's incredible.
That piece of score as well and the timing of it. So you have all these different elements. So the timing with the skip and the timing with the punching.
His theme that he wrote for her was very sort of painful and longing, and it just for me that captured her very well. Yeah, that kind of almost like kind of cat noise, isn't it? It's like when I used to torture my cats. No, I don't do it. No animals were harmed ever with me, ever.
But then going into the kind of timing of the punching.
Yeah.
The punching with with Batman. There's so many sort of little intricate moments within that sort of thing, and then even that kind of noise of, I don't know what it is when Penguin, they're having a chat as well, but one piece of score from Danny.
Yeah.
What were the conversations that you had with that?
Well, again, it's the same thing. I mean, I try to give him in like the scene where she comes back in her apartment and goes crazy. I love that sequence too, because again, that's the way with music all the way. But in particular cases, that particular case, it captures her 100%.
Yeah, and I love that when she gets rid of the neon and it's hell here. Yeah, it's so clever.
You know, and that's where Danny's good. He captured the emotion of what she's going through in a real way.
Talking of emotion, one of the most emotional scenes for me in your films, in all your films, is the end of Big Fish. I love that scene. Just, as he's kind of, well, we'll have a look and then we'll talk about it. This is just beautiful. Why did you want to make Big Fish? What was the connection that you had, or that you made with the story and what you wanted to tell?
Simply my dad died. So that was, and it was slightly similar in a funny way, in the sense where I didn't really know him that well, and that kind of connection was sort of similar, and other people knew more about. So it was very thematically very powerful for me, and so. I think that's something that hit me at that time. I would never, I don't think, been able to make that without experiencing that.
Do you think that you can say that about all your films in a way, and that there's something, that there's something personal?
I could have never done Beetlejuice. I've had none experienced it.
But within most, there's always a personal, I guess, connection to something within the story or the theme.
Yeah.
Always
absolutely.
the case.
Even no matter what it is, I have to find that for me, even if it's abstract or nobody else can see it. It's something that is definitely important to me. I have to find some emotion in it that means something to me, even if it's cryptic or whatever.
Was it an easy score to get Danny to?
But he, what he's very good at is I can have conversations, but it's like, okay, this is it, and the simplicity. It needed to have the kind of emotional simplicity of the story as well, and not over, just try to support it and not overdo it.
When does he normally come on board with a project? Is it different for each project, or with this one?
I try not to. I mean, like some Nightmare, they do it right from the beginning, or some of the animated things. But I usually let we have a conversation, come visit set. We talk abstractly about things, but then he sees some stuff, and then he's just, like I said, that's why we connect. He's a kindred spirit that way.
Yeah. I got my kids to pick the next one because I couldn't pick which song I wanted to play from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. My outfit is, however, influenced by one song, not the one we're going to see. Did you have fun making this film? Because it's so much fun to watch.
Well, it was in a weird way, because I hadn't been back to Pine, so went back there, and so we got to shoot. We made the Chocolate River on the James Bond set, which was, people going, what kind of a fucking James Bond is this? When the chocolate, what the fuck is going on? This is a one weird James Bond villain or whatever. So,
contaminating our waters. What's he doing?
So no, it was.
Danny had a job and a half on this one, though.
Yeah, well, we try to do our thing and keep in the spirit of our. And that's what I liked about, when you read the book, it's songs they're like songs, and so rather than just print it, so it just felt like that would be a fun way to experience those things.
But it's his voice; he does all. It's his
Oh,
multi-tracked and pitched and all that. Yeah, that's
him and Deep Roy were very busy on that film. Yeah.
It's. I mean. Yeah, how did he do it though?
That reminded me back of what we used to do with Oingo Boingo. So for both of us, it was kind of fun to go, because I go like, okay, the squirrels. Okay, what about like an ABBA-esque one with this? Because I hate squirrels, and it's like I love ABBA. I don't know, it's a mixture of things.
Well, that's I read that all the song, the big pieces are all different genres of like musical theatre almost in a way. So each one has a different genre connection to it.
So it was fun. That was fun, and yeah, so so he did the score, and then he often did these songs. But it kind of reminded me when he did Nightmare or Corpse, where you get to do some songs within the score.
And then when you're on set shooting that, are the songs already done that you're...
Yeah, they're roughed in. I mean, they would go back and do some record. But yeah, no, that's fun. It's like when I did things where you actually doing music to it, like that, or like in Sweeney Todd, where you're actually doing, it's really fun.
You like that?
Yeah.
More musicals?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, we're going to watch Augustus Gloop, if that's all right with you, just because it's so much fun. I would say we watch this film at least once a month. They flippin' love it. So let's take a look at it right now. I'm still watch that and go, how did you do it? How did you do it?
Well, yeah.
Ask yourself that question.
I saw a lot of Deep Roy. That's all I can tell you right there. It was fun. It was, and I love doing those different musical things. It really gave it, a great energy. All the different genres.
Does he like that challenge then? When you
yeah. That was that was a good one because it had the score, but then it had these other things, and we all love Roald Dahl and like the spirit of him, so that connected it as well.
We're coming on to our last clip, and it's apt because we're coming close to Christmas that we're going to talk about Nightmare Before Christmas, and this wonderful character Jack that has he's where did he start, because he feels like he's been present and was present through so many of your films up until the point where he
and it was just based. The whole thing was based. Oh, why am I holding this thing?
Sorry.
By the way. Sorry. So it started as a sketch, but then it really had to do with growing up loving stop motion from Ray Harryhausen and things. So all my loves of things like, and I love Halloween, and I love the Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I used to watch as a child every Christmas. So there was and the Grinch. There were the Christmas classics that were just sort of kind of seasonal things. So, stop motion had this idea, character mixing, and so for me it was like a poem. So I wrote it like Night Before Christmas, and that kind of thing. I wanted to do it as a children's book, all that, and then so I just developed it in my tower dungeon at Disney, and they didn't know. So
they didn't know you were doing it,
and so it's something I did while there, but they didn't know about it, and so 10 years later, they go, okay, well, we'll do it. But they didn't really, So I got lucky to do it, and it was a kind of a low-budget thing. They didn't really want to do it.
And look where
well,
it is
yeah,
now.
It started out to be. I mean, I never forget this. They go like, there's a touchstone, which means like just buried. And I remember them saying. We were talking about they weren't going to put out a trailer for it. We were going to put out TV ads. They weren't going to put out a trailer because the main character doesn't have any eyes. You can't really show a trailer, so they weren't even going to put. So it was a troubled production in the sense where they didn't really want to do it, but they allowed us to do it. And then it sort of took on a life of its own after a while because it wasn't really that they didn't really know what to do about it.
Yeah. What's for you is do you get a different experience, obviously, on a physical side of working on an animated film as opposed to a live action film and stuff, but what do you love about animation?
Well, stop motion in particular, it's because, like I said, I grew up, the first movie I saw was Ray Harry, like Jason the Argonaut. So that form of animation had a lot of impact on me. And like I said, even the Rankin and Bass Rudolph or certain TV stop motions had a power for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I sort of held out to do it, instead of doing cell animation, wanted to do it in that form because it felt like the characters and what it was about, it just needed that dimension and kind of crude, simple beauty that stop motion can give you.
But then you also, with it as well, have created this style of character and personality that's very much your style in terms of, you could see a flash of a character from it, and Frank and Weenie, whatever, and it's it's you because you've got your own style in terms of drawing and animation. Was that something that you've always had, or did you work on?
Well, no, I mean, I guess so. My time at Disney, I was not really a good so I didn't fit into the Disney mold, and it was at a time where I got lucky to just be able to draw things for a couple of years. Just none of it ever saw the light of day, but I still had the opportunity to sit there and draw, for minimum wage, but still it's better than nothing, and it was great. And so I loved that, but. So I created a lot of things that I knew never would be Disney and never be, even though I was working there, and they liked that for a while. And then, but like I said, bottom line is I was lucky enough to do these things. Whether it's Vincent short film or Frank and Weenie or Nightmare. Whatever the journey was, it's been lucky to be able to do it.
With Nightmare, did you always know that music was going to feature heavily in it, that it was always going to be a kind of musical animation?
It's like a holiday special. It's like a holiday. It's like, again, you must have seen Rudolph, silver and gold, that shit. Rudolph the Red-Nosed. Yeah, that's part of Christmas. Or even the Grinch had it. So, those songs was always integrated. That's why before, as I was writing the script, I think I had Danny come in. Danny was one of the first collaborators. We were working together on that before we even started to develop the script.
Wow, amazing. Right, we're going to watch something from it now. So good. I should just say, if you want to see it in its entirety, it is showing here next weekend and on the 22nd of December here at the BFI. So what a wonderful thing to do just before Christmas as well. Before we finish, thank you so much for being here, first of all. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Now, I asked you to pick a film so that we could play something for our audience. We've got something to show them in 35mm as well, which is
good.
nice.
Okay. Oh, actual film. Great.
Actual film.
Excellent. Good.
So why did you pick this, first of all?
Well, because I don't know, maybe it shows. But it's a film that's never really seen much, and unlike Nightmare, it was another touchstone classic that remained a touchstone classic. So it's like I don't really like talking about it, but for me, it's another personal one where it feels like I don't like talking about myself. But if you want to know anything about me cryptically, it's in this movie, Ed Wood.
Ed Wood, everybody.
You don't get to see him, so whatever.
Thank you so much
for
being
much.
here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Please
much.
put your hands together
Thanks.
for Mr. Tim Burton.